Hi, in this week's video I'm going to talk to you about what I perceive to be the 6 biggest risks to a property investor, and especially to novice property investors or people maybe with less than 10 properties who haven't had that detailed experience for longevity of time. So let's go through each of these and explain why they're a risk and something you can do about them. The first and the biggest risk, the thing that gets in the way of most investors, whether it's in property or other investments, is fear. Fear of the unknown. And this video is part of trying to deal with that, because if you don't know what can hurt you, Warren Buffett's got a great quote. He says, in investing, the trouble is that people don't know what can hurt them. They go into the jungle and they don't know what can hurt them. And you need to be aware of what can hurt you. Because if you can become aware of what can hurt you, you can then start to manage your fears. Because the worst thing is that these fears stop people moving forward, and they end up leaving their money, their hard-earned money, either sat in equity in their house and they don't use it, or they leave their money sat in the bank. And guess who's then using it? The bank. They're paying you a pittance on it and they're lending it out and making a profit. So they get to leverage your money instead of you leveraging your money. So it's really important to start to understand what are the things that you personally are fearful of in property. Make a list of them. What are the things that scare you? Write on your pad, what are the things that scare me about investing in property, and make a list of what those things are that scare you. And then deliberately set about finding out about as much information as possible on each of those things on that list so that you can start to build confidence to move forward. No investment is risk-free. But if you learn from people that have gone down the path before, if you get their map of how they got from where you are now to creating the financial freedom that they've created, if you get their map and learn the steps that they took and then you mimic their steps, that can give you a lot of confidence. The trouble is, a lot of people in their learning listen to somebody who's got to here talking from this level, and you're down here and you can't connect the dots. So you need to get somebody to teach you who can connect the dots, show you all of the map, not just show you the bright lights of London, but not how to get there from Newcastle, for example, or vice versa if you want to get to Newcastle from London. So what you focus on, you feel. So the next thing is to start to manage your emotions, because if you focus on the risk, if you focus on the danger, of course you're not going to do it. But if you focus on the joy and the pleasure of having financial freedom, of being able to do what you want, when you want, how you want, and you really believe in that, and that's your focus, you'll take more positive steps. So be aware that what you focus on, you feel. Be aware that you need to get out of your comfort zone and move forward. One of the biggest challenges for investors is you're probably comfortable. If you're listening to this video, you're probably earning enough income to provide for you and your family. That's a problem. Now you might say, well, why is that a problem? The problem is that you're comfortable, you've got what you need. So when I say, look, you could create another £40,000 a year of income in the next few years for yourself, there's a part of you goes, that would be great, but there's another part goes, why take the risk? Because I'm comfortable. Whereas if you didn't have any income and you were really hungry, you'd get out there and take those risks because you'd want that income. So it's really important to move your comfort zones, step out of your comfort zones and step forward. The second biggest risk to novice investors is cash flow, because they manage things badly. They buy properties with negative cash flow thinking, well, it's all right because the market's rising. So I'm happy to be losing £100 or £200 a month because as the market rises, I'll make a lot more than that. You should never, ever, never buy a property that has negative cash flow, because you don't know when the market might flatline or drop or stay the same for 10 years. And you don't know when you might lose your job or have some critical illness and you're unable to support that £100 or £200 a month. So it's really simple. Never buy with negative cash flow. Also make sure you've always done your rental test to ensure that your property will rent well. So before you buy a property, advertise it to rent. If you don't get at least 10 replies, you walk away. The third biggest risk to novice investors is they have no clear rules. When I started out in property, there wasn't education around back then, and I was just trying my best, doing the best I could. The trouble was my best wasn't good enough. I'd buy a property and waste hundreds of pounds, or often thousands of pounds in the mistakes that I made, because I had no clear rules of what worked and what didn't work, and what I should do and what I shouldn't do. Professional property investors have clear written rules. They know exactly what they do. They're really funneled and focused, so they don't do lots of different things. They don't chase lots of different golden shiny pennies on the floor. They just get laser focused at being good at one strategy, learn the rules on it, and do it again and again and again until it's made them really, really wealthy. And that's what you need to do. You need to get clear rules on the strategy that's going to take you forward. The fourth biggest risk is not having contingency in play, not having a backup plan. Somebody taking all of their money they've got to invest and sticking it in the property, and then when the boiler breaks, they skimp. And now it starts to affect their personal life because they have to go borrow money out of the current account. It affects Christmas, it affects the family life. You should always keep a minimum, if it's family lets, a minimum of 5% of your investment pot to one side as contingency. So if I've got £100,000 to invest, £5,000 to one side. If I've got £1 million to invest, £50,000 to one side to protect the investment. If I've then bought properties that are only cash flow positive, that will only grow that amount, it won't take away from it. Okay. The fifth biggest challenge to investors in the UK is this one-track strategy. You're fearful of getting into property or fearful of taking the next step. What people need to be fearful of is the fact that at the moment their money is either in the bank or is invested, often in pensions, for example, in the stock market. You have a one-track strategy. All your money is invested in the same place. If the stock market doesn't do well, your investments don't do well. Okay? That's crazy to have all your money in one place. Just like it would be crazy to have all your money in property. You need to have a balanced diversification of your investments so that you balance up your investments correctly. Okay? And you need to make sure you're not a one-trick pony. Okay? My mum retired about 7 or 8 years ago as the credit crunch hit, and the bottom had dropped out of the stock market, and suddenly the pension she was offered, the annuity, was totally different to what it had been predicted to be. She had a totally different income amount to what she thought she would get when she retired. She couldn't change her retirement date. It's too late now. But she's tied into that one-track strategy. The final risk is not understanding the importance of learning to buy with discount. It is really hard when you start out to master this skill. People say, I get that you tell me to buy at discount. I get that I should buy at discount, but I just want to get going. I want to get started. I'm struggling to find it, so I'm going to buy this. Or I've got 5% discount. You keep telling me to get 15% discount, but I've got 5%. I'm going to go ahead anyway. Buying with 15% plus discount will triple your financial results versus somebody who doesn't. You can buy the same property, have the same tenants, the same eventualities happen all the way through, triple the results if you've learned to buy at discount. You know, is it worth a bit of your time? It isn't triple your results just for a day, it's year after year after year. You know, if you're sat next to somebody and they don't buy at discount and they're going to make 15 grand a year in 10 years' time for the rest of their lives, you'll make 45,000 a year for the rest of your life. If they're going to make 50,000 a year, you're going to make 150,000 a year because you learn to buy with discount. So, you know, people don't understand the importance of that, and so they flounder with it or don't put the effort into it. Get a property sourcing team around you. Get masters who source properties outstandingly so that while you learn the skill, you can buy in the meantime and just pay them a few £1,000s for doing it for you. Well worth it, because at least you're moving forward and you're buying with those discounts that leverage and triple your financial results. Invest with knowledge, invest with confidence, create financial freedom. I'll speak to you soon.